morning to all of you. We want to welcome you once again to our third meeting that we will talk about insomnia. Okay, and just to let you know a little bit about how we selected these topics, we had a bunch of people from our church say, "Hey, what would you be interested to hear?" Then we looked at what Elmhurst was doing, and we said, we're not going to do anything they are doing because if people want to listen to that, they can go there. We're going to do something different. So I was quite surprised that insomnia came as one of the topics that people are interested in. Thankfully, I do not have to deal with it, but I can imagine that it's quite terrible for people who go to bed and cannot sleep. So we are looking forward to Barbara's presentation today on this topic, and I pray that many of you will benefit from it. It's good to see some new faces. We want to welcome you. Can we have a raised hands for people who are here for the first time? Okay, this is good. And I see some returning faces who were not here yesterday, but they were here on Monday. So we want to welcome back all of you, and obviously those who have been here every single time. You're gonna get an A in this class. Okay, you are A students. Thank you for sitting in the first row here. That is excellent. If you are here for the first time, I do want to ask that you make sure to sign our registration form. Okay, the lady in the back has it. You don't have to do it now if you haven't done it. You can do it at the end. That will be fine as well. Yesterday, I started with some good news. Anybody remember what the good news was? Obviously, you are not here. So, what was the good news I shared yesterday? Oh, you're not remembering. Okay, you don't pay attention. Okay. It wasn't raining. Yes, it was sunny. Yeah, that wasn't it, but good guess. Okay, the good news was this, that God is for us. Okay? Sometimes people think that somehow God is against. God is trying to catch you do something wrong to do what? To zap you, punish you some way. The Bible says that God is for us. That is why God wants us to live a healthy life. That is why Barbara is doing the ministry that she's doing, to help you come to that abundant life that God wants for all of us. God gave some simple principles in nature, common sense. Barbara talks about common sense a lot. So for us to live a healthy life that would lead to an abundant and a happy life as well. And a life full of meaning and service. Because when you are sick, all you can do is take care of yourselves. It's hard to take care of your neighbor. So today I want to share a second good news, and that is that not only is God for us, God is with us. And the Bible speaks about this all through the Bible. God is with us. God is not only for us, He is with us. It's a miracle that somehow He finds a way to be with us. And when He is with us, I want to read to you Proverbs chapter 3, verse 24. He says this, when you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. That is my prayer for all of us. Proverbs 3:24. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. And you wake up in the morning refreshed and ready to go. So we want to welcome Barbara now. And remember, tomorrow I'm going to ask you, what was the good news? Okay? The good news is what? God is with us. Yesterday, God is for us. Tomorrow, I have another good news for you. So, Barbara, why don't you come up here and I want to welcome her again. Thank you. You okay?
Thank you. Testing. Yes, got voice. Yes, I think I told you the story of my daughter Emma, who wanted to be better in a minute, or grow up in a minute, and I want to be better in a minute. But every day it's a little bit more better, and I don't know if that's good language either. But I thank God for the healing powers in the body, and often we get impatient. But little by little, in its own way, the body can heal. But a very important part of healing is having rest and regeneration. And I find it quite alarming today how many people suffer from insomnia. And Newton's third law of motion states that to every action there is an equal and an opposite reaction. Why do so many people suffer from lack of sleep? So at Misty Mountain Health Retreat, we run 2 programs together, have a week break, and then another 2 programs all year until December. And no one wants to go to a health retreat in December because they're all saving up for Christmas. And then everyone wants to come to the health retreat in January because they want to recover from what they did in the break. And so our staff have their holidays in December. So we're running programs constantly. And we have a Misty Mountain WhatsApp. And every now and then, every day, I have a look what's going on there. And then I noticed we have another Misty Mountain WhatsApp where the naturopaths dialogue, and I'm on that. And sometimes they say, Barbara, what do we do? Or, Barbara, what do you think of this? And it was only a week ago the naturopaths were discussing, and we have 2, and they said, what are we going to do about the amount of people who are complaining that they cannot sleep? And so I commented and I said, well, I have found in my experience of being the director there for about 23 years, that when people complain of not being able to sleep at the retreat, I question them because I'm always interested as to the whys. And the first question I asked is, well, do you usually sleep? And the response to that is 99.9% of the time, no. And so what I was saying to the staff is that people think when they come to the health retreat, everything is going to be suddenly better. They're going to be able to sleep. So they complain to us, why aren't I sleeping? So my first question is, well, do you usually sleep? Well, no. Aha. Now, our body, and we're going to discuss this a little bit more tomorrow when we go in the mind, we are creatures of habit, and I think we all realise that. And this can play a part in lack of sleep, is getting into the habit of not being able to sleep. But tomorrow, when we go to the mind, I'm going to show you how we can rewire our mind. And we can be rewiring our brain. Sorry, I think my microphone has fallen down. See, sometimes they have big ears and sometimes they have little ears, and I've got a little ear. Yeah, I think that's a bit better. Now, put your hand up and point to me if it's run away somewhere. And tomorrow I'm going to show you how we can be rewiring our brain right up until the day we die. Isn't that good news? There's an old saying that says you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Well, I've got some good news, you can. You can, because they always thought our brain was hardwired. But now they're discovering it's actually soft-wired. It's a changeable brain. And that is really good news. It means that we're not locked in to certain habits, and we're also not locked in to maybe character traits that our parents had that we don't really like. We don't necessarily have to do that or be that. But the first step to change is acknowledgement, is acknowledging, well, this is what I usually do. This is what I'm in the habit of doing, but I actually don't want to do that anymore. That's actually the catalyst for change. So what I want to do this morning, I want to go through some of the functions that happen in the brain and actually what happens while we sleep. It's a fascinating process of of what happens while our eyes are closed. And of course, we have no say over what happens when our eyes are closed. But you might be surprised to know we actually have more say than we think we do, because what we do when our eyes are open is actually affecting what's happening when our eyes are closed. There's a tiny little gland in the base of the brain. It's called the pineal gland. And light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to a control center in the brain where your body clock is located. And your body clock communicates with the pineal gland. So notice what I said, light and dark signals. So the light and dark signals that go through our eyes into the brain are affecting our body clock. Now the pineal gland, it releases 4 hormones every night, but only at certain times. But it's releasing them according to the light and dark signals, as we'll see in a minute. But I'd first of all like to look at what are the hours that they are released. Now I believe you are still in summertime, is that right? And it's probably about October you'll change to winter times. So let's begin with summertime. So I'll do ST for summertime. In summertime, the hours that the pineal gland releases these hormones is between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. Whereas in wintertime, the hours of release are between 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. A clear indication that your body clock doesn't know about daylight saving. I don't know what you call it here, but in Australia we call it daylight saving. In fact, we've got, I think it's about 5 states in Australia, and 1 state refused to go into the summertime. So if you're going from 1 state to another in summer, you have to account because there'll be a time change. And it's interesting that out in the country, you know, say the farmers, the ones that milk the cows, they always just adjust their times according to the light. But in the city, it's set. So going to summertime, it's really something that they did for the city people because it's set there. So what it does, of course, in the summertime means it gets people up earlier and to bed earlier. So they've got more time in the evening. But down on the farm, the people are automatically getting up a little bit early in the summer because of the light and to bed a little bit earlier again because of the light times. So what are these hormones? And they're only released in those hours. One is serotonin, and serotonin is your mood hormone. And I'm going to tell you an interesting story. We had a doctor come and attend our program, a lady doctor, and she told me a very interesting story. She said, my husband and I, we are alternate. Even though we're medical doctors, we have a alternate or functional doctor's practice. So she was a little bit what we call hippie. And when she gave birth to her first child, she believed that children know. So she let him feed whenever he wants. She let him go to bed whenever he wants. By the age of 7, this child was not a very happy child. He was a precocious child. He was a very demanding child. And he never went to bed till about 11 o'clock at night. It was coming to the point where the mother and father were finding him very difficult. They even were not liking him very much. Isn't that sad? No wonder the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they shall go, because they don't know. They need us to train them. It's like the vine going around the veranda pole. You let it go wherever it wants, it'll hardly ever go around the veranda pole. But if every day you gently guide it, it'll eventually get round the veranda pole, which is where you want it. Or you call it a porch, is that right? We call it a veranda in Australia. So she said her and her husband got together and said, we're going to do something about our son. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put him to bed earlier because we need time alone. We need a break from this little boy who's become very, very demanding. And so mother and father made a decision to put him to bed at 7 o'clock. You know, I say to parents, it's very powerful when mother and father are united. Got that? That's why I say mother and father go into the bedroom and work it out and then come out united. It'll be a much happier home and you'll actually have happier kids. And so they made a decision, that's what we're going to do. And it's very interesting, even though this child was used to getting his own way, whatever happened, and he saw this united front, he knew he had no hope. Got that? He was going to bed at 7. They said it took a couple of nights, but it's very important not to get angry, always smile. Yes, it's 7 o'clock, sweetheart, but I don't want to, we know, but it's 7 o'clock. But little by little, and it only took a few nights and he was asleep by 7. They said, yes, it helped our marriage. We had time by ourselves without this very demanding child. In fact, you know what the demands were? The demands from this child were, please put some limits on me. Did you know that? Children are happy. I call it the hedge of safety around the home. The hedge of safety is there's guidelines. You can do this, but you can't do that. Children are very safe in that area, hedge of safety. But they said what made the biggest difference was in our son. Our son became nice. Now, I think there are a few reasons why they had a happier son. One was he was getting good amounts of serotonin now. But I think the other reason why this little boy became happy is because he now had some guidelines. He now had some more structure in his life. And I found out very early in my parenting that children love structure. They're happy with the same things done at the same time every day. And this is also where sleep comes into it, as we will see, because we are creatures of habit. And when I was doing my nutrition course many years ago now, probably 15 years ago, there was one question that challenged me. In fact, it was just one sentence and I had to do a whole assignment on it. Talk about rhythm and routine in the body. And I thought, rhythm and routine? And as I studied the brain, the heart, the liver, the kidneys, everything runs in cycles. Everything runs according to rhythm. You think about it, our heart beats in rhythm. We walk in rhythm. Everything done is done in rhythm. And it really opened my eyes, this question. And so part of getting our body back into better sleep habits is doing the same things at the same time every day. But mood, and isn't mood important? What's the old saying in Australia? Happy wife, happy life. I guess it says happy wife, happy life. Yes, happy husband, happy life too, is because the lady's usually the one in the home and with the children. And we've got some unhappy homes because they're not getting their serotonin levels, going to bed too late. If a person goes to bed at midnight every night, they're only getting half their dose of serotonin. And this little boy became a happy boy, yes, because there were now some guidelines in his home, there was structure, but he was now getting his serotonin levels. You want to feel good, go to bed early. Another hormone that's released in these hours is arginine vasotocin. Arginine vasotocin is a very interesting hormone because arginine vasotocin puts you into a deep sleep. And a lot of people think that if they go to bed later, they'll be tireder and they'll sleep better. But actually the opposite's true. The earlier you go to sleep, the more likely you are to fall into a deep sleep because of arginine vasotocin. But there's something else about arginine vasotocin, and that is it's our natural painkiller. Did you know that you have a natural painkiller? By the end of this week, I'm sure you'll start to realise everything we need, we have. We just need to know how to access it. So you have a hormone released in your brain in those hours so that it's your natural painkiller. So I have a girlfriend, and the story I'm telling you is about 30 years ago now. She was a nurse, and 30 years ago, many nurses had to retire because of bad backs, because they had to lift. Well, today, they've got cranes, They've got strong men, orderlies working in the wards because they're losing too many nurses. And so they do most of the lifting. But my girlfriend had a very bad back. She'd done some lifting, it hurt, but she kept going. You know, that's one of the reasons why injuries get worse, because people don't listen and stop. Stop. Yes, my throat would be totally better if I'd stopped talking. But I have to keep talking. But I'm very glad to God that it hasn't totally gone. It's still there. You still, I think, can decipher what I'm saying. She didn't stop. And she did something that actually doesn't make any sense at all, but many people do. She took painkillers. You know what painkillers are? Silencing the message that your body is giving you, which is stop, lay down, put your feet up. It's like me driving in my first little car. It was a Fiat. And if the oil went low, this blue light would start flashing. It's a really annoying light, so I get a hammer and smash it. Now I can drive a bit better. What is it? 20 kilometres down the road, the car stops. The engine's gone. It's important to listen. So one of the reasons my friend had such a bad back, she hadn't stopped, she hadn't listened, and now it got so bad. See, if you don't listen to the first whisper, the body will start screaming at you. And when it starts screaming at you, it's doing damage. That's when the sledgehammer starts knocking instead of the delicate little tap. So her back was so bad, she was in pain 24/7. She went to the doctor. They said, you've done quite a bit of damage. They did a bit of an operation, which helped a little bit, and they sent her home with painkillers. Now, she knew as a nurse what those painkillers were going to do to her liver, to her kidneys, and she also knew they have a great effect at first, but after a few months, what's happening? Body starts to get used to them. So she didn't know what to do. And isn't that true? And I'm sure that's why you're here. Many people don't know what to do because it's the area of education that's, I'd say, sadly very deficient. A man and his wife came to town giving meetings in the local hall, and it was on pain management. So she went, and he talked about arginine vasotocin. He said, you have a natural painkiller. It's released every night. To access this natural painkiller, you've got to go to bed early. You've got to go to bed early to access that natural painkiller. But he also explained how when that natural painkiller is used, and of course it's only used if you need it, when that natural painkiller is used, it leaves a waste. And if that waste is still there the next night, arginine vasotocin isn't released. And so he showed the importance of exercise. Because when you exercise, you stimulate, especially the waste system called perspiration. You stimulate the skin to release more waste because as you're walking, your body's heating up, and so perspiration throws off waste. And he shows that exercise does several things. This was his big thrust. He said what exercise does in the day, it causes a release of the waste that built up because of using the arginine vasotocin. Now, if you don't have any pain, you don't even use your arginine vasotocin. But if you have pain, it'll naturally kick in. I know when I broke my arm and they gave me painkillers to deaden it while they set it in place, and as I left at 1 o'clock in the morning, because did you know that I was not seen till midnight? And did you know that I went into that emergency department at 6 o'clock? Why wasn't I seen till midnight? Because the whole system is chocked up with people that don't know what to do for a burn, don't know what to do for a sore finger, don't know what to do if they're stressed, don't know what to do if they feel sick. I couldn't believe the people that were in emergency for all these little tiny bits and pieces. I thought, what's the matter with humanity today? We're not smart, we're dumb. They say we're enlightened age. I think we're a dumb age. Yes, we're enlightened in some areas, but in other areas, I just was shocked at how many people don't have to look after their body. And I sat there in the most excruciating pain, thinking, now I know what I do. Teaching people how to look after all the little bits and pieces that happen in their body. But when I left, they said, we want to give you more painkillers. And I said, but it's not as painful now. And I took them with me, but I slept all night. And I'd like to suggest that I slept all night because of my release of arginine vasotocin. Yes, I had to learn how to sleep with this arm, and I got into quite a system over 6 weeks. I'd sleep like this for about 5 hours, then I'd wake up uncomfortable, and then if I went on my side and put my arm like that, I could sleep for that for 6 hours. But I was getting my natural painkiller every night. Did I exercise? I couldn't run because this didn't like me, the jolt of me running, but I did walk every day. I wanted to get the release of it. But get back to my friend, she learnt about arginine vasotocin. She learnt about exercise releases the waste from using it, but she learned something else. She learned that when you exercise, and she started walking 5 kilometres a day, she said that this man had told her, when you walk, you now strengthen the ligaments, you strengthen the tendons, you strengthen the muscles, and we have an incredible body that has the ability to adapt and adjust. You can also call it compensate for an injury. And within 1 month, she was off all her medication and she was pain-free. That's quite incredible, isn't it? And part of it was also strengthening her core muscles, because all your core muscles are connected to your spine. You want a strong spine? Strengthen your core. Because when you strengthen your core, that helps to hold your spine in place. So she was a very happy lady, but she had to maintain that, and she will need to maintain that till the day she dies. Everyone I know is managing something, and if you can manage it, you're doing very well. And the Bible says that one day Jesus will come again and we'll all be cured. But until then, we manage. But I'm so glad for a management program. So arginine vasotocin puts you into a deep sleep, and it's your natural painkiller. The third hormone is epithalamin. And epithalamin is a hormone that increases learning capacity. And tomorrow you will discover that we should be learning new things right up until the day we die. We should never stop learning. And this is where exercise comes in. Our brain should be exercised every day. How do you exercise the brain? Same way you exercise your muscles. How do you exercise your muscles? You challenge them. You use them. Same with the brain. You challenge it. You use it. You learn new things every day, because too many people have brains that are deteriorating too young. And if you read the Bible, there is no case of Alzheimer's or dementia there. You know, it's quite a new problem. Also depression. It's normal to feel sad when a tragedy's happened, but then there's recovery. And we'll look at that in more detail tomorrow. But a lot of people's brains are deteriorating because they're not learning new things. Going to bed early stimulates a release of epithalamin, and epithalamin increases learning capacity. I say to the teachers, can you tell the children that had late nights in the classroom? They said, oh yes. They don't seem to grasp the concept. They don't seem to retain the information. I said, now you can say to them, you didn't get your epithalamin last night, did you? There was we're watching the news one night. Every now and then we watch it to see what's going on. And there was a report of a drive-by shooting that was up in a second floor of a set of apartments, which of course is alarming. But what I found alarming was they said, and there was a 10-year-old boy in that apartment on his iPad, but it was 1 o'clock in the morning. I thought, what's a 10-year-old boy doing on his iPad at 1 o'clock in the morning? And they actually related it as if it's quite normal. Yeah. Please have guidelines in your home. People seem to like the word guideline better than rules, but please have guidelines in your home. Children should not be on iPads at 1 o'clock in the morning. They're missing out on their serotonin, their arginine vasotocin, their epithalamin. We can do much to help our children and their education by making sure that everything closes down at night. My husband, I was away, it was last year, he said, I've got 3 teenagers in my house, 3 grandchildren. He said they love coming on, I think they were 15, 16 and 17, and they love coming and staying with us and working in the health centre. But he said they'd come home at night and they'd all disappear in their rooms. So Michael turned the Wi-Fi off. A few minutes later, Pa, there's something wrong with the Wi-Fi. Michael said, that's right, I turned it off. He said, it's time to come out and socialise with your grandfather. So every night they came out. He said every night they sat around, they laughed, told stories, they played Monopoly, they had a grand time. And those girls were looking forward to every evening. Hasn't that been lost? So often it's lost today, is this social aspect. And you might be familiar with the Blue Zone. The Blue Zone is a book that was written where they analyse people who commonly live till they're 100, but not only living long life, but also quality life. And the 3 common denominators with these groups of people, one was they're very active. Number 2, they eat food in its natural state. But the third was they're social. You know, we're social people. Have you noticed? I've been on a train. Have you ever been on a train? 98% of people, what are they doing? And I've even seen 2 girlfriends sitting next to each other conversing by WhatsApp, by text, and they're sitting next to each other. You know, the social is very important. So please have guidelines in your homes for the sake of your children's mental, spiritual, emotional and physical health, and for yours. Epithalamin increases learning capacity, and epithalamin slows down aging. And everyone over the age of 25 likes that one. Up until you're 25, you can't wait till the next year. After 25, you want to slow it down a bit. Have you ever looked closely at rock stars when they're in their 60s and 70s? Don't look too close. They age so quickly. From a distance, they're slim and with brown hair, but you'll see that they age very, very quickly, because when the most rock stars go to sleep, 3 a.m., sometimes they're totally missing out on the hormones at night that are responsible for recharging us, particularly the last one, which is melatonin. And melatonin is your fix and rejuvenate nighttime hormone. Melatonin is the hormone that is responsible for the increase in healing in the night hours. Did you know that healing accelerates in the night hours? So if you want to accelerate your healing in any way, in every way, for whatever the condition, make sure you access those hours. And you might remember, you might not, because I am guilty of information overload. When we went on our journey through the gastrointestinal tract yesterday, do you remember what releases melatonin in our gut? It's the microbiome, the microorganisms. And what are they fed by? Fibre. Did you count your fibre this morning? How many different types of fibre are you having? More The more variety of fibre you eat, the more variety of microorganisms, and those microorganisms are responsible for the release of melatonin in the gut. So accessing those hours is vital to get the most out of the body, to keep it in good working order, but also for healing. For healing, it's vital. When a person is sick and recovering from whatever illness it might be, they need more healing. It was in 2021, a double-vaxxed man attended our program and on the second day announced that he had COVID. And by then, half of the staff had it and half of the guests had it. And Michael had it first, and he wanted to confirm it, so he raced into town to get a test, because and this was 2021, if you had COVID, then you had coverage and you could go in certain places because you had COVID. And so it was confirmed that he did. 24 hours later, I went down. First day, I had terrible headache. I spent most day in bed. The next 2 days, I had high fever. Fever is a wonderful thing. Did you know that? God created fevers, and fevers do the best boost to your immune system. But remember, what puts the fire out is water. You just got to keep well hydrated. Whenever you're feeling a little bit too hot, go and have not a hot shower, not a cold shower, but a tepid shower. And that'll just bring it down a bit. Just remember, water puts the fire out whenever there's a fever. Fever is nothing to fear because it's your friend. It has a purpose. I knew that, so I lay there saying, oh, thank you, Father in heaven, this is going to speed up my recovery. But for the next 48 hours, I think I slept mostly the whole time. That's all you feel like doing in a fever, isn't it? Every now and then when I felt a little bit too hot, I'd just go and have a shower. That'd bring it down a bit. I never take my temperature. And what's the point? I can feel I'm hot. I never took my children's temperature. What's the point? They're hot. They're getting too hot. Oh, yeah, you can feel it. We'll put the fire out. Now, you don't actually have to put a hose over them. We're a bit more civilised to have showers and baths, but it's as simple as that. Remember, in 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, God says, I'm not giving you the spirit of fear. How many people fear the fever? But of power, love, and a sound mind. And a sound mind considers this. So yes, all I did for those 2 days was drink a lot of water and hardly eat a thing. I think by 4 o'clock in the afternoon I had a banana, that was about it, and slept. Because I also knew that sleep releases certain hormones that are responsible for healing. By the 4th day, I woke up, fever was gone, I felt good, just very tired. By the 5th day, not as tired. By the 6th day, running up mountains. Can you see this also is this word that we don't give much account for? That's why I give Emma's famous story. I'm going to grow up in a minute, Mum. We've got to give it time. We've got to give it time because it takes time. And when I tell people of my experience, they said, didn't you take zinc? Didn't you take ivermectin? Didn't you take this? And no, because I know that I live in a body that has an inbuilt ability to heal itself when you give it the right conditions. And what were those conditions? Sleep and water. They were the main things. Sleep and water. What an incredible body we live in. It's just knowing how to access those healing powers that are in the body. It was probably about 1950s that serious research started to be done on sleep. Not much research had been done before then because people slept, because they didn't have iPhones, iPads, television. Well, they didn't have them back then anyway, but there was televisions. So television started to keep people up a little bit later. If there's no television in the home, what do people do of an evening? They read, knit, sew, and you know, after a while you start to get tired, isn't that true? And you go to sleep. So it was in the 1950s that the serious research began. And they started on rats. They looked at rats because rats gastrointestinal tract and functioning of the body is very similar to humans. In fact, the milk that is the closest to human milk is rat milk, but we're not going to milk rats, are we? No, we'll go to goats. But just an illustration why they do so many experiments on rats, and people don't seem to mind if a rat dies. Is that right? But it's very similar, and what can happen to a rat in 2 years will happen to a human in, say, 70 years. So they would put little electrodes on the rats and monitor their sleep, and they found there were patterns in the night. And they noticed that when the brain was busy, the eye would flicker, even though the eyelid's shut. And when the brain was more still, the eye was more still. And they found that this happened in 90-minute cycles. And when the eye was still, they called it non-rapid eye movement time. And when the eye was moving fast, they called it rapid eye movement time. And as they studied this, they went over to humans. In fact, one man even did it on his little 2-year-old, had all these things on her while she slept, and he found the same thing. And then, of course, they get volunteers in and they get all wired up while they sleep. They found the same thing. And then they investigated even further as to what's actually happening. And what they found is in the non-rapid eye movement time, there's a courier service. So what's this courier service? Well, let me show you the brain. Here's the brain from side on. And the whole top of the brain, that section is called the cortex. And down here is the hippocampus. And the hippocampus is where our short-term memory is stored. So everything that you're learning this day is stored in your hippocampus. But while you sleep, there's a courier service that takes from the short-term memory unit up to the long-term. So this courier service carries the memories up to a part in the hippocampus where the long-term storage unit lies. So that's happening in non-rapid eye movement time. Also in non-rapid eye movement time, there's a cleaning system. It's very much like what happens in the night in the cities, then the street cleaners come out. What they found is that the nerve cells shrink up a little bit, allowing more fluid to float around the nerve cells and allowing this system, which is called the glymphatic system. So the glymphatic system is made up of glial cells. And glial cells are the brain's vacuum. They're the brain's vacuum cleaner. We have 1 trillion cells in our brain, and there are far more glial cells than brain cells. While we sleep, especially in non-rapid eye movement time, these glial cells are active. So what are they cleaning up? They're cleaning up waste from neuronal activity. They're cleaning waste up from the combustion of glucose and oxygen at the cell. Remember I mentioned that we are a living machinery and all machinery has waste. And so that's the cleaning system that happens in non-rapid eye movement time. What's happening in rapid eye movement time? There's a filing system happens. I found it very interesting in the book Why We Sleep by Dr. Matthew Walker. He's a neurologist and he's an atheist. And he said it's almost as if sleep has an intelligence. I thought a very interesting comment from an atheist. It's almost as if sleep has an intelligence. Why did he say that? Because this filing system files our memories in order. Isn't that interesting? You know, the Bible says that God is a God of order. And this filing system is no haphazard shove here, throw there. No, it's a system. Now, I've always been familiar with the saying in psychiatry, because I worked as a psychiatric nurse, that nerves that lie together fire together. In other words, all our good memories are all together. Have you noticed when everything's wonderful, all wonderful feelings come and wonderful memories? Have you noticed when something goes bad? Have you noticed a whole lot of bad things come up into your mind? Because nerves that lie together fire together. Well, what Dr. Matthew Walker showed is that the memories through the day, they're actually put in a certain order. All the good guys go with the other good guys. All the bad memories or negative memories go with the not so negative ones. But it's interesting to know that so you can catch yourself if you're having a bad day and all these bad things are. Remember that nerves that lie together fire together. And you can switch over, and we'll look at this tomorrow, by start counting some great things in your life, and you can start to wake up the good things. Knowledge is easy to him that understands. And when God said, I've not given you the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind, knowledge is power. Understanding and having this knowledge allows you to access it. So there's a filing system. But something else is happening in that time, and that is dreaming. Over the years, there's been all sorts of theories on dreams. Isn't that true? But what Dr. Matthew came to the conclusion that our dreams happen to help our brain know how to file. Have you noticed that often when you dream, there are bits from what happened in the day and bits that happened 20 years ago? Well, it appears they all come out to know how to file. That's a very simple explanation, but it also makes sense. Now, the front part of our brain, as we'll see tomorrow, is where your reason, intellect, and judgment is, and that's totally asleep. Because have you noticed that some of the things you dream are weird? You wake up and think, oh, I'm glad no one could read my brain. That's because there's no border sensors awake to say, oh, that's a bit stupid, oh, that's a bit silly, that doesn't make sense. Everything comes out. And apparently the purpose for that is to know how to file. I remember I had a dream one night that I was pregnant. And I decided to pull the baby out and have a look, and I tried to put the baby back and I couldn't. Yeah, it's a bit crazy. They just about lock you up, wouldn't they? But it appears that there's a purpose, and that is to help with the body to know how to file certain memories that happen through the day. Also in rapid eye movement time, there's a consolidation. A consolidation of the things that we learned through the day. So the things that we learn through the day, if we go to bed early, they're more likely to be cemented or kept in our brain. And that's what happens at that time. Also at this time is where inventions take place. What I'm about to do is I'm about to show you when in the night all this happens. And then it will make even more sense. Dr. Matthew Walker, in his years of research, which are quoted in his book, Why We Sleep, and I really appreciated Pastor's opening comment on Proverbs. Do you remember Proverbs 3:24? Is that we awake refreshed because it's a sweet sleep. We should be having a sweet sleep. And what Dr. Matthew Walker discovered, and he did not like it, is we need 8 hours a night. Notice what I said? He did not like it. He was hoping the research would say, 6 hours is fine. But it's not. It's not. And when you consider the information on the pineal gland, what are our choices? We've got a lot of choices. It can be 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. And that's a great study time, by the way. Or it can be 9 to 5. That's one of my favourites. Or, especially in summertime, at a stretch, it can be 10 to 6. So don't you love the way God gives us choice? You have a choice about when you access those 8 hours. So let's have a look at what happens in those 8 hours. let's do my favourite 9 to 5. So the first hour and a half is 9 to 10:30. So 9 to 10:30, how much non-rapid eye movement have we got? And how much rapid eye movement have we got in those hours? From 9 to 10:30, 80% of that time is non-rapid eye movement and 20% is rapid eye movement. And then the next hour and a half is 10:30 to 12. And in 10:30 to 12, we've got about 60% rapid eye movement and 40% rapid eye movement. And then we've got 12 midnight to 1:30. It's about 50-50, right in the middle of the night. And then 1:30 to 3 a.m., it's 40% non-rapid eye movement and 60% rapid eye movement. And then the last 2 hours, 3 to 5 a.m., 20% non-rapid and 80% rapid eye movement time. Aha! And I found this fascinating because that explains so much. It explains so much as to why we must have the 8. And Dr. Matthew Walker, he shows all the figures. He shows 10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, 50% less cognitive performance, 50% less physical performance. That's quite strong. He also shows that 10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, a 50% increase in mental illness. And I think you'll agree with me. You look at the figures, mental illness has increased exponentially in this last 100 years. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to look at what's interfering with our sleep. Now, definitely not sleeping. Lost my voice. Is that better? Yeah. I think you'll agree with me, one of the biggest culprits is technology. So I'd like to go through the Sustain Me principles and show you how they help with sleep when they're kept and how they interfere when broken. Light and dark signals are fed through the optic nerve to the control centre in the brain where your body clock is located. So our eyes need sun every day because what sun does is reset the body clock. Now, I experienced this a few years ago now. I just flown from Australia to America, 15 hours, landed. I slept quite well that night, and then the next night I was consulting all day, 25 guests. I had a heavy program, and that night I didn't get to sleep till 2 a.m, just wide awake. Then the next day, I'm straight into it again because I had to do half the consults the next day and lecture in the morning. And one of the consultations was late, and it was afternoon, and the sun was coming in big glass doors. They were open. So I turned around and the sun hit my face. And I closed my eyes and I just let the sun go into my eyes, and I opened my eyes. I'm not looking at the sun, but I'm just allowing the sun to be there. I was there about 15 minutes. This consult was very late. That night I slept all night. I've never known that to happen. Never known to have jet lag for one day. And as I studied the effect of sunshine on the brain, it was the sun. It reset my body clock. And so every time I have a long trip, the worst is Australia to America. It's easy going back because I think we're going back with the circuit of the earth. But coming here is the hardest. I always make sure I go outside, and we should not look at the sun, but you know what you can do? You can close your eyes and put your head up to the sun. And then put your head down after maybe a minute and just not looking at the sun, but the sun's rays coming into your eyes, it resets your body clock. So sunshine is in the day is important for the proper releases of the pineal gland secretions in the night. Water, use of water. Every body function needs water. Our brain is 85% water. From the neck down, it's 75% water. So to be able to sleep well at night, we need to go to bed well hydrated. For all these processes to happen, for our pineal gland secretions to happen, we need to be well hydrated. And 8 glasses a day. Start early. Have you been trying? Start early. Start early. Have it by your bed. Go for at least 2 or 3 glasses before breakfast. You get a lot out of the way. And then 2 or 3 glasses before lunch. I ease off in the afternoon because I don't want to have to get up in the night. I know people that can eat almost 16 ounces before they go to bed and sleep for 8 hours. Well, my bladder's not quite like that. So again, you're the doctor there. It's just getting to know what your body can handle. Sleep. Do you remember God's perfect mathematical formula? 888. 8 hours. I know it's my accent, 8. I was in Atlanta airport once and I went up to the guy and I said, "Can you tell me where gate A is?" He said, "Oh, we don't have that gate." I realised it's the A, the accent. 8 hours. One lady said to me, "I'm so discouraged." She said, "Oh, finally I'm getting 5 hours. And you tell me 8? I said, "Rome wasn't built in a day. Be very thankful for your 5 hours. When you're thankful for your 5 hours, guess what? You'll do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more." One lady, upon hearing this, she was realistic. She said, "I don't get to bed till midnight." So she said, what I did was I started to go to bed at 11:30. After 1 week, I started to go to bed at 11. After another week, 10:30. She said, "It took me nearly 2 months, but I got to 10. I said, "Well done." Rome wasn't built in a day. Little by little, you can train your body back. And as you'll find out tomorrow, it takes 21 days to form a new habit. She accessed that by little. Because if you go to bed at midnight and then say, "Right, I got to go to bed at 9 and go to bed at 9, live." And how many people say, "See, it doesn't work for me." No, you got to work with it. If you want to be in bed by 9, you can't make that decision at 5 to 9. You got to make the decision early in the day. You got to start early. Got to eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a queen, tea like a pauper, supper. Supper, you call it. Eat lightly at night. The only way you can eat light at night is to have a decent lunch. Because when you lay down to sleep, your stomach wants to sleep too. You've got to work out what works for you. My sons, they're tradesmen. They eat breakfast at 6:30 in the morning. They eat lunch at midday. They're working physically hard. They need something at night. So they have a meal at night, but they might have it at 6 o'clock, and then it's mostly digested by the time they go to bed. So you're the doctor. You've got to work out what works for you. My sons, they've all worked out hard to build up their muscles. Poor boys, look, they inherited their mother's body type, which is little. No boy wants that. So they don't want to lose that muscle. So they need to eat at night. And that's why the choice is yours. You've got to work out what works for your body. I go very well by having breakfast about 7:30, having a main meal about 2, and I don't usually eat again. If I'm hungry, I'll eat a banana. You know, banana is something that helps to release melatonin. So that's a great evening meal for children, a few bananas. Help them to sleep better at night. Trust. Trust in God. I love the little things that the pastor gives us. He's always there. He's for us, and he wants us to sleep. But we've got to do our part. And in Ecclesiastes 5 verse 12, it says, the sleep of a labouring man is sweet. Here's another sweet sleep. When you're physically exhausted, you certainly sleep better at night. But this also takes in stress. If you can't sleep and you start getting annoyed with the fact that you can't sleep, will you sleep? No. And so some good tips onto how to sleep is to do what the Bible says in 1 Thessalonians 5:18, in everything give thanks. This is a really good thing to do if you can't sleep. You lie there and you list all the things that you're thankful for. And remember, nerve cells that lie together fire together. When you start thinking of one or two, a few more come up. Thank you so much, Father, I'm not in a Siberian work camp. Thank you so much that I'm in a comfortable bed. Thank you so much that we're able to open one of our windows. The other window we can't. Seems in America a lot of people have windows that are shut tight, yeah? In Australia, we're used to opening windows. There's always something to be thankful for. So when I broke my arm, I was just very thankful it wasn't one right arm. Oh, I'm so thankful the orthopaedics pulled it back into place. They were talking about pins and plates. I don't know whether I would have gone there because I know comfrey's pretty good. But if you're anxious and worried, that can really stop you sleeping. And you can change your mindset. Remember, nerves that lie together, fire together. If you start thinking about all the negatives, I need to sleep, this is ridiculous, I must sleep, starting to get annoyed, all the annoying things in your life will come up. Have you noticed? When are they going to fix that dripping tap? And I'm sick of that tree dropping its leaves all over my... So what I've just told you will allow you to catch that. And as I'll show you tomorrow morning, that we have more say over our thoughts than we think we do. You can choose what you think. And so when you're into that, stinking thinking, that's what my daughter Emma says to her kids when they're grumbling. You got a serious case of stinking thinking. And remember, when you start to list all the things you're thankful for, I'm so glad I've got feet, I can walk. You know, often we don't know how good it is till it's gone, isn't that true? I'm so thankful I've got eyes to see, ears to hear. A blind man stayed in my house a couple of years ago. His name's Neville Peters. He's an American singer, incredible. Google him and have a look at him. He's a black American guy, incredible voice. He's like the Christian Stevie Wonder. He stayed in my home. And after we'd eaten breakfast, he said, would you like me to do the dishes? Can't see. There's no limitations for this man. None. And I was at a function in Germany about 2 months ago where he was singing there. And they guide him to the piano, and he's a bit like this. But you sit him at the piano, oh, it's like he's got 100 eyes in his head. Oh, the music. The music, as soon as he feels those keys, he's home. and he's there. So value your eyes. There's always something to be thankful for. In fact, there's the old saying, a man was complaining about his shoes till he saw a man with no feet. Eh? But you will find it's a great way to get to sleep if you can't sleep, to just lie there and be thankful. One lady said she pictures someone in her life, maybe a great aunt. She said, as a child, she loved staying at her great aunt's. She had a beautiful rose garden and she cooked the most beautiful food. And she had all this fine china. Can you see where your mind's going now? It's off getting annoyed with you can't sleep. Now, what keeps me awake is the chat room. You heard of the chat room? Here's my chat room. Oh, well, I'll go here and I'll make a garden there. And it's Sophia's birthday soon and I told her I'd make her a dress. Now I'll get the material, chat. That's what happens to me when I wake up in the middle of the night. And if you stay in the chat room, you'll never sleep. You've got to get out of the chat room. So how I get out of the chat room, and you might have noticed I love memorising. And the biggest chapter I've memorised is James chapter 1. It's 26 verses. Took me a while. Took me months, but it's there. And so I go through and I have to think about the next verse. I have to think about the next word, and it gets me out of the chat room. And often in the morning I assess, now where did I get to? I think I got to verse 13. Another thing you can do to get out of the chat room is count sheep jumping over fences. Isn't that an old remedy? Or you can count from 100 backwards. Or you can sing songs in your mind, just anything to get you out of the chat room. And there's another thing, is breath. You can breathe in for 5, hold for 3, breathe out for 5. Do that 10 times. Now you're concentrating on how long you've breathed in for, count of 5, counting for 3, and that can get you out of the chat room. But it also ups the oxygen, and oxygen in the brain soothes the nerves. So there are a few things you can do in your journey to train yourself out of the chat room and back into more sleep. Also, there are some things that must stop because they interfere greatly with sleep. One is caffeine. What caffeine does is that it blocks the output of these hormones in half for 6 hours. One lady said, well, does that mean I can have a cup of coffee in the morning? I said, no, because what coffee's also doing is leaching minerals out of your bones, weakening your teeth, weakening your bones, disrupting the neurotransmitters in the brain, causing a chemical imbalance in the brain. Do you want me to go on? She said, that'll do. That'll do. But if you're a coffee drinker, please don't stop. Just start reducing it. So I was at a retreat in Spain, and on the second day a lady came to me and she said, I'm so glad to be here, but she said, I've got a non-stop headache because I've stopped coffee. I said, well, I've got a remedy. She said, what's that? I said, have half a cup of coffee. She's very surprised. She didn't think I'd say that. I said, we want you to enjoy yourself. But instead of having 2 cups of coffee a day, have 2 half cups, and then 2 third cups, and then 2 quarter cups. And then you can ease yourself off it, often in a week, without pain and suffering. Because it greatly inhibits your sleep patterns. And this is one thing that is interfering with people's sleep today. They don't sleep well, so they wake up in the morning, what do they reach for? The quick fix that's going to give them a lift. But unfortunately, the lift it gives come with a corresponding dump. And where does the lift come from? It comes from your adrenal glands. And eventually your adrenal glands get exhausted, and then you're always tired. So it doesn't make much sense. To take coffee to give yourself a lift is like taking out a loan to pay off your loan. Eventually there's nothing left. The other thing that can interfere with sleep is alcohol. Yes, it might put you to sleep, but you're going to wake with half-charged batteries because alcohol cuts the release of these hormones in half, almost half, 40%, almost half. Plus, kills off your brain cells and you need them all. What also interferes is having a large evening meal at night. If you've been busy all day, so we were travelling the other day and we got to our hotel, was it Sunday, and we were starving, and it's 6 o'clock at night. And we were very glad that the lady had made us some lentils. We watered them down, put salt and herbs and a bit of oil in, and we had a bowl of lentil soup each at 6 o'clock. Oh, that's it, very, very nice. Killed the hunger pangs, gave us enough substance so we weren't starving, and yet we were able to sleep. Soup is a great evening meal. I visited a friend one day and I hadn't been able to eat. I've been travelling. Food wasn't great. If it's not great, I'll just keep drinking water. And she said, I haven't made an evening meal because I know you don't eat an evening meal. I said, well, actually, I'm starving. She said, what'll I do? I said, just steam me some vegetables. And the steamed vegetables can also break down quite quickly. Also, so is a plate of salad. And as I mentioned before, a couple of bananas. The other thing to abstain from, and we touched on this, was technology. I love technology. It means through WhatsApp, I'm in touch with my whole family all over the world, no matter where I go, no matter what I do. But I don't have it in my bedroom. So make sure if you're charging your phone at night, turn it off. Or charge it in the next room, especially if you're on call. Or you've got to use an alarm, put it in the next room. So make sure that you don't have exposure to technology while you're sleeping. Also, don't do your emails at night. And I'll tell you why. The sun's rays give off blue light, and there's a receptor site on the retina that absorbs blue light, and it helps with brain function in improving your cognition. Problem is, all the screens have blue light. Not the same frequency. So sorry, looking at your phone's not going to do what sunshine does. But it's similar enough so that in the night, if you look at the phone or the computer or the iPad, the message is, daytime, wake up. 80% of Americans sleep with their phones. And if you can't sleep and you look at your phone, what's the message to the brain? Wake up, daytime. You will not go back to sleep. So please put it in another room so you're not tempted to look at your phone. So I used to do all my emails in an evening. And when I discovered what I've just told you, I do my emails in late morning or afternoon. So when the sun goes down, my iPad goes down. Because I want to sleep well. I used to only sleep 6 hours a night. I used to think that's all I need. I feel okay. The problem with 6 hours is you feel okay. It's a deception. Remember what I showed you, what Dr. Matthew Walker revealed. 10 nights of 6 hours sleep a night, you've got 50% less cognitive performance, 50% less physical performance. So when I read that, I thought, whew. I mean, if you have 4 hours of sleep, you don't feel very good. At 6 hours, you feel okay. It's a deception. So I had to train myself back into 8 hours. And the one thing, that's why I mentioned the chat room with you, it was the chat room. That always, I wake up, 4:30 in the morning, chat room starts. Right, I'm going to do this today and I'll go here. So I got out of the chat room by going through my memory verses and I'd have that extra hour of sleep. So I trained myself back into the 8 hours. Inhale. Inhale through your nose. What oxygen does is it soothes the nerves. That's why the breath work I just showed you. 5 in through the nose, hold for 3, 5 out through the nose. Increases the oxygen, soothes the nerves, and helps you sleep. It also stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And your parasympathetic nervous system is your calming nervous system. Nutrition. All of these functions that happen in the night, all the release of these hormones are all made from the food that we eat. And the 3 essentials we've looked at a few times. The 3 essentials are fibre. All plant food contains fibre. Fruits and your vegetables, giving you your vitamins and your minerals that you need. Protein. The neurotransmitters in the brain are made from protein. Legumes, nuts and seeds. And fats, the fattiest organ in the body is the brain. And the fat that the brain loves to burn as fuel is saturated fat, but the fat that the brain loves to use for cell membrane function and repair is the omega-3. I think God's got a sense of humour because the nut that looks like the brain is the nut that's the highest in omega-3, walnut. Omega-3s deteriorate very, very quickly. So you're best eating them whole. When I buy walnuts, I make sure they're whole walnuts. You'll notice if they're broken up into little bits and you eat them, they're bitter. That bitterness tells you that they've gone rancid because they're exposed to light, heat and oxygen. The seeds that are even higher than the walnut are chia seed and flaxseed. There is a use for your coffee grinder. It's to grind up your flaxseed, pour it on your breakfast. Or mix your chia seed with water or coconut water or juice or soy milk, however. And that's really nice poured over your fruit in the morning. That's how you get your omega-3s. The brain needs peak nutrition to sleep well, and it also needs peak nutrition to be able to effectively make those hormones. Moderation. Moderation in all good things. So please, for better sleep, have most of your food at breakfast and lunch and eat very moderately, very lightly, if at all, at night. Don't overdo the sun or you'll get burnt. So it's moderation in all the good things. But also moderation in timing. As I mentioned earlier, the body is a body that loves working according to routine. So what you'll find, if you get into the habit of eating at the same time, exercising at the same time, working at the same time, going to bed at the same time, your body will start to get into that rhythm. And the doctor, the lady doctor that I told you, the first story I told you, they started to put their little boy to bed at 7. He was, after a couple of weeks, running into bed at 7 o'clock. He was into that routine. He could choose his story. That's what I say with my grandchildren. You can each choose a story and you can each choose a song. And what I used to do with my 3-year-old boy, James, when he was 3, I used to say to him, are you taking your bear or your elephant to bed tonight? What's the message? You're going to bed. But you're giving them a choice. Because often if parents say, okay, bedtime, get to bed, kids, you get World War III. You've got to plan it. You've got to plan it. And I noticed my daughter-in-law, she's Finnish. She has great routine with her kids. And I noticed she used to get them when they were 2 and 5. She put them to bed at 6:30, but she'd start at 4:30. She'd start at 4:30. She'd give them a light tea of bananas and a bit of fruit at 5. And then they'd go into the bath. And then they'd go straight from the bath into the bedroom. And she had the blinds drawn in the summertime. She had a soft light on. And there's their pajamas. And there's the books. Can you see the message? You're not saying get to bed. Can you see you're gently easing them that way? And then there's not so much fuss. But children love routine, and actually so do adults. So at home, I always eat at 7 o'clock for breakfast. We always have lunch, 1:30. And if we have anything at night, it's something light at 6. At the moment, I'm eating breakfast between 7:30 and 8 and having the main meal at 2. Now, my body has adjusted to that because I'm doing the same thing every day. Next week, I don't know what it'll do. I'm all over the place. I'm all over the world. But how I cope is as soon as I get into that country, I immediately go into their routine. And then I do that same routine every day. I aim for a 9 o'clock bed. Sometimes it's 9:30, sometimes it's 10. So I aim for in that hour slot. At the moment, the lectures I'm giving in the other town finish at 9. I said to Jacqueline, how'd that happen? She said, I don't know, it slipped away from us. Usually we try and finish by 8:30, and then we can be home by 9. But it's summertime, and in summertime, these hormones are released between 10 and 3. And so you don't stress that you're 5 minutes over or half an hour under. What the body doesn't like is breakfast at 6 o'clock one day, breakfast at 10 o'clock the next day, breakfast at 8 o'clock the next day, and the next day there's no breakfast, all over the place. So of course the body can handle a little half hour here and there. But if you get your body into a certain routine, then the other thing that'll happen, you'll find you'll start doing your daily evacuation at the same time every day. And that's handy. And so going into routine certainly helps with sleep. Then the question often arises, what about people on night duty? Well, someone has to do night duty. So if in your work you're a nurse, a doctor, a paramedic, my suggestion is that on days off, you certainly go into this routine that I'm talking about. But I remember one night duty I did as a nurse. Night duty was 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So what you can do with that is you can lay down and have a sleep at 6 p.m. to say 10 p.m. So you've got 4 hours of sleep there where you're accessing some of those hormones. And then get up, have your water, have a meal, because you're about to work for 8 hours. And maybe halfway through the 8 hours, have another meal. And then when you come home from night duty, don't have a meal. Have water, have a hot shower, put the blinds down on, and have another 4 hours there. And then in the middle of the day, let the sun go into your eyes, resetting your body clock, do your exercise. So depending on what hours your night duty are, and also the knowledge of what I've shown you, we're still this morning, then you'll find your body will handle that. But ideally, we go to sleep at night. And it's not the odd day you might stay up a little bit later. And it's not the odd day you don't, it's what you do every day that matters. So when we're in Scotland a couple of weeks ago, they kept talking about this Kaylee they were going to have on Saturday night. And I see one lady nodding. I don't know what a Kaylee was, but they have bagpipes. They had a guy on bagpipes and a guy on piano accordion and a guy on drums. And they had some Scottish dancers there and they had different things happening. And then they get everyone up and I don't know, in Australia we call it like a barn dance, and everyone locks arms and goes around and I don't know, makes the thing and people go under. So there's things happening. And they said, we know you like to go to bed at 9, Barbara, but you might like to go a bit later this night. I think I got to bed at 11. So you see, it's not the odd day. No, and that can't happen once a week. It's just the odd time. And obviously, as we say, stuff happens. You might be kept up for a reason of this or this. And flying here from Dubai, it was a 15-hour flight. But I'm very glad that I had business class and was able to lie down and get a few hours sleep. But as soon as I come here, I immediately go into sleeping in your hours. Actually, when I think about it, I've had no jet lag at all since I came here. Because as soon as I come here, I go immediately into your schedule, into the schedule of Chicago. And I find that my body quickly adapts and adjusts to that, especially if I'm doing it this day, then the next day, then the next day. And I find even though I might be a different place every week, my body adapts and adjusts quite well if I keep to that routine. So what I'd like to do now is open the floor for questions. Yes. What about people have diagnosis of sleep apnea? Well, what I have found is that sleep apnea can have a couple of causes, and one can be carrying too much weight. And in my book, Sustain Me, there's a great chapter on weight loss that shows you how you can ease that. Another cause of sleep apnea can be mouth breathing. And then the question is, well, why are the people breathing through their mouth? And they're breathing through their mouth because the eustachian, I don't know why it keeps doing that, but anyway, it's keeping everyone awake, isn't it? So why are the sinuses blocked? And I find the sinuses are usually blocked because of the 5 allergens. And the 5 most common allergens are dairy and wheat and oats, peanuts and refined sugar. And we find that when these are eliminated, it can take sometimes 2 months to see that the eustachian tubes are clearing, but something you can do to increase the clearing of the eustachian tubes is to sniff a powder called golden seal. And golden seal is called the king of tonics to all mucous membranes. So we find that most sinus problems are due to years and years of allergy. So mucus builds up here, and then so you've got a situation of fairly clogged up stuff there. So even when these foods are stopped, so the excess mucus response greatly eases, you've still got a bit of a cleaning up job to do there. And that's where sniffing just very small amounts of golden seal powder can help to clear that out. But what can often happen when a person's mouth breathing, and I'll quote you a study that was done on monkeys, and what this researcher did was he plugged up the monkeys' noses so they could only mouth breathe. And what happened was the roof of the mouth dropped, the jaw dropped. They were miserable looking creatures, but by the end of I think it was 4 or 6 months, they found that the little tubes at the back of the nose had shrunk right up and even grown skin over them. After 6 months, this researcher taped up the monkey's mouth. You know, our body wants that air. And so the skin naturally broke, and those little tubules within 1 week had actually opened up to their full size again. So what's happening with humans that mouth breathe? It's an illustration, if you don't use it, you will lose it. Those little canals that take the air to the back, you see, nose breathing pressurizes the air, and it's pressurized through these little canals. It's much smaller than the mouth, but that's important for the pressurizing of the air, making it perfect for the lungs. And we control how big they are by how we breathe. The more you nose breathe, even if you have a deviated septum, if you tape your mouth up and nose breathe, those little canals open right up. And so with the book Breath by James Nestor, he and his colleague, they taped their mouth up for 10 days. They thought they were dying. 10 days nearly killed them. But they found their sleep apnea got really, really bad. They plugged their noses up so they're only mouth breathing. Their snoring was out of control. After 10 days, unplugged and taped mouth up. Within 1 week, they had no sleep apnea and no snoring. Interesting. And so if someone has sleep apnea, it can be a few things. It could be allergy to this, blocking the eustachian tubes. It could be just in the habit of mouth breathing, and that can be changed. And it could be excess weight. So we found that remedying all of those things helps to come off the sleep apnea machine. More questions? Yes? You've noticed I don't use any notes. Well, practice makes perfect. And please remember that for the 23 years that I was the health director at Misty Mountain, I lectured 13 hours a week. So that's 3 weeks a month every year. Practice does make perfect. But my lectures when I started were incredibly simple. But I'm an avid reader, and the more I read, the more I put into the lectures. In fact, sometimes I'd think, wow, how am I going to fit everything in? This lecture, I often give in 50 minutes. But I was so glad that I had extra time because I really explored everything in more detail. So there's a saying, practice makes perfect. There's some other sayings, practice makes permanent. And it's also repetition is the mother of retention, and repetition deepens the impression. So I pick up these sayings as I go along. And when someone tells me that, I don't get it straight away. I have to go over it and over it and over it and over it. And I mentioned that it takes 21 days to form a new habit. It takes 21 days of going over one. Maybe you'll choose that verse that the pastor gave in Proverbs 3:24. If you go over that every day, for 21 days, it'll be in your mind. And so a great way to help your memory is when you lie down at night, go through your whole day. Go through what you did as soon as you woke up, what you wore, what you had for breakfast. A bit boring after a while, and by then you're probably asleep. Yes.
What are your thoughts on
Yes, what's my thoughts on chronic chronic stress? Do you know life? Yeah? Yeah. Yes, and that's what I'll be looking at tomorrow, safeguarding against depression. I'll be looking a little bit more at childhood trauma. My comment is this, life should be good. Life should be very good. And so what you've got to address, what are your stresses? What are your stresses? And in Matthew 12:34, the Bible gives a principle, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. What's pressing on your mind comes out of your mouth. The things that are the most pressing to you are often the things that you think of most. And stress certainly interferes with sleep. So it's a matter of looking at what is stressing you, why is it stressing you. If work's stressing you, can some solutions be found? But if no solutions can be found, maybe another job. So that's what you've got to look at is what are your main stresses, because life should be very good. So it's important to target the stresses in your life and work out why are they stresses and what can I do to change those stresses. And I'll be targeting that, and I'll hold off a little bit because I'll explore it in detail tomorrow. Thank you. Yes?
I have a friend who has osteoarthritis in his spine. Not a doctor, or it's gone a lot of
Yeah. Well, I've got some good news. There's a book out there called Sustain Me, and it's got a whole chapter on arthritis. And it seems too simple. It seems so simple. We've had people that have gone to the best top specialists. One man said, I've spent $1 million on my health, and his specialist said they can do no more for him. In 2 weeks of being at our health retreat, he went from 90 units of insulin a day to 10 units of insulin a day. Incredible turnaround just with these simple lifestyle changes. And in Sustain Me, there's a chapter on arthritis, and this does cover osteoarthritis as well. But I've also got a chapter on osteoporosis, so you can combine those two chapters implement lifestyle changes, and there certainly can be recovery. Yes? Well, there are 2 health retreats here in the States that I have attended frequently over the years and who are now implementing a lot of our principles. One's Eden Valley, and that's in Colorado. Another one is Living Springs Retreat, and that is in Roanoke, Alabama. I think it's the week after next I'm at a retreat in called Evening Shade, Arkansas, and that's only a new retreat. In fact, I was here last year to do their pilot program, but those are the 3 retreats that have implemented our program. Yes? The role of magnesium. Notice that I haven't listed any things to put you to sleep. That's because I think the most important is everything that I covered. And you've probably noticed from my lectures that there's no quick fixes. But some people have used magnesium to help get to sleep. And for some people that helps. And we use magnesium citrate. Some people have said to me that doesn't make any difference. And some people, they said, yeah, it helps a lot. And another one is some people have found melatonin can help to get them to sleep, but personally I'd rather access what we have. And valerian is I think that's an E. Valerian is a herb that is a mild tranquilizer, mild sedative. So some people have found these can help as they are training their bodies back into sleep. Dr. Matthew Walker said sleeping tablets don't really help because you don't get quality of sleep and the body can become dependent on them.
We have a few questions that came in online. The first one is kind of lengthy and it has 3 parts to it. So it says, what can one do for partially empty sella, the shrinking of the pituitary gland, which causes the brain cavity to be filled with cerebral spinal fluid? Apparently, up to 60% of people have an partially empty stella, and those don't know it. Is there any way to drain the spinal fluid from the brain and prevent the pituitary gland atrophy? Thank you. And then he goes on.
And I'll just comment on that one first. This is someone's opinion. Did you hear that? This is someone's opinion. And remember Psalm 146 verse 3, put not your trust in princes, neither in the Son of Man, in whom there is no help. You see, this is a medical opinion and they may not be accurate. But when I look at the fluid around the brain, and when I look at the spinal fluid, one of the best things to help regulate that is exercise. Because when you exercise, and remember that brain fluid pumps rhythmically, and when you walk, you are walking rhythmically, and that helps with that. But that fluid is made out of water. So can you see what we're getting back to is these laws of health? And in the little book, The Ministry of Healing, page 127, she says these are the true remedies. And I believe that to be true because I've seen it to be true. And that is a medical opinion and assessment. But they have no...
Are you referring to the 60%?
Yeah, but they have no answer. Do they? No. And the other thing is you can have an assessment one day and everything's gone wrong in your life and you got great stress, you didn't drink enough water, you didn't sleep well, the assessment's going to be terrible. And then a month later, everything's going wonderfully, you're keeping all the laws of health, you can have another assessment and it can be totally different. That's why I don't put total weight on an assessment.
So Third question of this person is, what could be beneficial in preventing brainstem atrophy after a car accident? Could herniated discs in the neck cause brainstem atrophy? Any suggestions on how to deal with this would be appreciated.
Well, in the area of spine, the specialists on the spine are the chiropractor and the craniosacral chiropractor and also the osteopath. They're the experts on the spine. So it'd be good to have an adjustment or assessment from there. But at the same time, implementing these laws of health. Remember I said earlier that when you exercise, you build up the ligaments, tendons, muscles that surround the spine, because the spine is just bone. But you've also got fluid, which is dependent on us drinking adequate water and having adequate whole salt. You've also got the ligaments, the tendons, and the muscles around. That's what we do have say over. And so that's what I'd suggest. And remember, pain is your friend with exercise. And so with a condition like that, rebounding might not be the best because that could hurt. But again, start walking, even swimming. Swimming is great because it's not pressure on anything. Physiotherapists, they know a lot about muscle, tendon, ligament. They're like the medical osteopath. And so and there are osteopaths, and there are physiotherapists and physiotherapists. So it's also exploring all of those to get tools so that you know how to, and you can hypothesize whether it was the accident, whether it was the herniated discs, who knows. But you can do much to strengthen what remains.
One more from online. How can I treat H. pylori?
Helicobacter pylori is a bacteria, and there were some researchers in Australia that have got a Nobel Prize for discovering that it causes stomach ulcers, but I actually don't believe it. My question is, why is it there? And that's a question that's rarely addressed. And Helicobacter pylori is often in the stomach because of low hydrochloric acid, because one of hydrochloric acid's functions is antibacterial, and it'll knock off any excess. So it's very important to boost hydrochloric acid levels, and I have found that keeps Helicobacter pylori where it should be. And remember, the lining of the stomach, it has a thick mucosal wall, so hydration is of the essence. Leaving breaks between the meals is important. Chewing very well, exercising every day. And we have found that when you boost that hydrochloric acid, and a specific for boosting it could be taking cayenne pepper, 1/3 of a teaspoon in a little water just before the meal, or taking just 1/3 of a cup of hot ginger tea before the meal, or the juice of a lemon before the meal will naturally boost hydrochloric acid.
More questions?
Well, whenever there's a situation, a problem, I always look at history, I always look at lifestyle, and I compare the lifestyle to this. So my question is, how's he sleeping? Is he exercising? Is he drinking adequate water? Is he taking foods that are devitalized? So you go through all of this. That's the first place you go. Black toenails, it could be a result of medication. I don't know if he's on medication. It could be a result of inactivity. It could be a result of really bad shoes, looking at footwear. So there's a whole lot of questions to ask to discover why those nails are black. he exercise? Yeah, so you might find that as he improves his lifestyle, they will ease. Okay. Yep. Unfortunately, that latest shot that they've been giving to people over the last few years, all manner of strange occurrences are happening in human bodies that it's hard to explain. That is true. Thank you for that. Yes? Yes, now Parkinson's is many years in the making. And Parkinson's is damage to the nerve cells. And also it can be lack of vitamin B, but not just lacking it one day, many, many years of it. Aha, so there's the chemical exposure. Yeah. But yes, that's always where I start, because they're the true remedies. That's where you start. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very difficult one, because, you know, for all spine problems, I talk about strengthening the core. Have you seen the way a baby lifts up a ball? I mean, a 2-year-old? Pick the ball up like that. Is that right? How do we pick it up? And that bend in the back weakens the back. We need to start watching how the children run. You know, they all run on their toes. And they lift like that. The reason I say that is the biggest muscle mass in our body is our quads. Biggest bone is our femur. And God made it that way so that we lift and bend using this. And he's got to start building up those quads and start building up the core. Yeah. Ideally, he should try and stand back as much as he can and do this as much as he can. Yeah. And it's difficult when it's that advanced. But you can always try. There's a book called Better Eyesight Without Glasses by Dr. William Bates. And I've got a book on eyes in my Sustain Me book, and I quote his book. And I've known people that have improved their eyesight through doing his simple remedies. In the last chapter of his book, he actually goes through the laws of health and shows how eyes need sun, eyes need us to be well hydrated, eyes need us to sleep every night, eyes need us to assess our stress levels. Very interesting. Yes, I've known people that get rid of floaters by putting a drop of castor oil in their eyes once a day. One lady said within a week the floaters were gone.
Before Lois, there's a few other questions that came. One was, how do you treat warts?
There's a few ways you can treat warts. You can put a dab of castor oil on every day, but that will take a little while. But a quick way is to put apple cider vinegar on the wart and cover it with a Band-Aid every night, and sometimes it'll be gone in only a few days. If it's still there after a few days, just keep doing it. That's apple cider vinegar.
Okay, I'll go one more and then we go to Lois here. How do you improve oxygenation in the body?
You improve oxygenation in your body by breathing through your nose and breathing with the abdominal muscles. And to breathe with the abdominal muscles, we need to have a straight spine. And to strengthen your spine, you need to strengthen your core. When you strengthen your core, it holds your spine straight, and then you can breathe with your abdominal muscles. So breathing in and out through your nose balances blood gases. When you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, you lose too much carbon dioxide. And what nose does is balances the blood gases in the correct balance. Mouth does not do that. So breathing in and out through the nose helps to oxygenate the body. And of course, the most powerful way is exercise. No, it's all good. The midday sunshine's the strongest, so you only need a little bit. But the morning and the afternoon sunshine's very important because it's that morning sunshine, especially the first hour of the day, that's the biggest resetter of your body clock, is that first hour of sunshine in the day. Yes, you have to have your glasses off to do it because it has to go through the eyes.
Recommendations for
I do castor oil, sleep with a castor oil compress on it every single night. Might take a few months, but you've got nothing to lose. If it's still there a few months later, keep doing it because castor oil penetrates very, very deep. And it's interesting that she's got the tumour there. I wonder if there was history of damage there or it's hard to know. Yeah? I've certainly heard of improvement, and peripheral neuropathy can be healed. We've seen it heal. We've seen even feeling come back to the feet. Yeah, and it's in the poultice section, and it's wearing a cayenne pepper compress overnight. And to make the cayenne pepper compress, you put a piece of plastic down, and then you put 2 layers of kitchen paper. And on that kitchen paper, what I do is I put my finger in olive oil and dab it. Finger in olive oil, dab it. Finger in olive oil, dab it. So you've got little dabs of olive oil all over it. You do not pour olive oil on it because otherwise oil will drip everywhere. And the reason that you're putting the olive oil on it is because now you're going to sprinkle half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper over the whole, it's a paper towel. Half a teaspoon per foot. And what the olive oil does is it causes the cayenne pepper to stick to it. And then the foot goes straight on that. And then you put a sock on and they wear it overnight. And if the person's got cold feet, by morning they're warm. And if a person has peripheral neuropathy, often by morning they've got pins and needles in their feet. Now if it's really chronic, you might need to do that 3 times a week. And you just do it until there's feeling in the feet. Isn't that incredible? That the natural remedies have answers that medicine doesn't have. And the pancreas is giving the pancreas the right conditions. And in my book, Sustain Me, there's a chapter on diabetes, which shows the foods that are gentle on the pancreas and also castor oil. Sorry, pancreas, that's liver, pancreas is that side.
A question here, what do you do to combat stress and get rid of cortisol?
You got to investigate what's causing the stress and find solutions. Yeah, so it's hard to comment because everything has a cause and stress has a cause. And in every single person, there can be different reasons why the stress is there. But I'll be probably talking about that in more detail tomorrow. Castor oil, 1 drop in the eye once a day. Just don't put it in your eye before you're going to drive.
Is it painful?
No.
No? Okay. Can people with diabetes do intermittent fasting or time restricted?
Yes. In fact, the story I just mentioned to you quickly of the man who went from 90 units of insulin a day down to 10 units of insulin a day after 2 weeks, it was on 2 days of fasting both weeks and then only 2 meals a day. Incredible story. Type 1 diabetic.
Conventional medicine says you have to eat to regulate.
Oh, they've changed. They don't say, sorry, we made a mistake. They say, new research reveals, and you know what it's called? It's called time-restricted eating. In fact, any health professional who is still advising eating every 2 hours, they're back with the dinosaurs. Because the latest research is time-restricted eating. That's eating twice, and that's what we do with our diabetics. We feed them twice a day. Now, if they're still trying to balance blood sugar levels, we might give them a protein drink in the evening, but that's only usually because they're still on too much insulin.
Okay. And this is a more kind of technical specific question. Should someone who had total hysterectomy caused by ovarian non-estrogen based cancer use Anna's yam cream, and how to use it, how often and why? Would that help with dryness and estrogen? How about yoni stones? Can someone use this to strengthen pelvic floor?
That's what the that's what the yoni stones do. They strengthen the pelvic floor, and any problem in the reproductive area is a hormonal imbalance. And the yam cream works with the hormone pathways to restore balance. And so very important that lady go on the hormone balancing cream, which is the wild yam cream.
I have a question. Okay, one more and then my question.
Fungus toenails is an indication that there's a problem internally. And in my book, Self-Heal by Design, there are antifungal stage 1 and antifungal stage 2 programs that can be taken. And also there are herbs, alternating the herbs, different herbs every week to kill the fungus. And on the toenails, you can put a mix of 1 drop of oregano essential oil to about 10 drops of coconut. Coconut dilutes it. If you put oregano oil straight onto the toenail, it'll eat the toenail out. You might want to be eaten out. But if you don't, just dilute it a bit with coconut oil. In my book, Sustain Me, I've got a chapter on the skin and show how we've seen people totally heal from eczema, totally heal from psoriasis. No, there's no magic tablet. It's actually lifestyle and dietary changes that'll do it.
So, my final question for those people who love hot drinks. What do you think about coffee substitutes?
I think coffee substitutes are a great idea for people who miss their cup of coffee in the morning and want that nice hot drink. Absolutely. But your mouth and your tongue is your guide. If it burns your mouth and tongue, it'll burn your stomach. So please bring it to a temperature that's not going to hurt your stomach.
Thank you so much. We'll have a few announcements here to wrap up. And first of all, the new faces that we are so glad to see today with us. Make sure, please, that you sign in. You do the registration form if you haven't done so. The registration form is outside on the table. The second thing is that tomorrow morning, you know how they say all good things come to an end at some point? Tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock will be our last session with Barbara here in Burbank. And the topic is healing the mind, safeguarding against depression. Okay, so we hope that you can all come join us again tomorrow morning. Some of you may choose to go to Elmhurst tonight. If you need information about that, talk to me afterwards. But again, um, we will actually show the live stream here again, like we did last night. Last night, I think we had about 12, 14, 15 people that came and we watched it here. And tonight, we will do the same. If you cannot come tonight, I will show you, for those who do not know. So Barbara's lecture today and all the lectures this week have been recorded and they are on YouTube. You can go to now. If you go to YouTube and you search for Hope Route, you will come to a channel, and we appreciate all those who have subscribed in the last couple of days. Yeah, so all her lectures are there. There's a lot of information going to be there, and you can have it for future use. I shared with you about this first day. On Saturday at 1 o'clock, if you are not at Elmhurst with Barbara, you can come here and we enjoy what? Lunch, okay? We're gonna eat together. You've heard about the benefits of being a social person, okay? Having connections. Leave the phone home and come and we enjoy some good food and we enjoy some fellowship, socializing with one another, getting to know each other and share with each other part of our lives. This flyer will be on the on the table there. Take a photo of it. We don't have a few left, so but everybody is welcome. Another sad news is that the store will be here today and not tomorrow. So if you would like to purchase any of Barbara's books or the creams and whatever she's selling there, today is your last chance here in Burbank right now, okay? So they'll stay open until everybody can get what they want. When you came in, you should have received this magazine, Why Be a Vegetarian. If you didn't have it, it's on the table in the back. Barbara has referenced many times the book Ministry of Healing, and we are very, very glad to be able to provide it to you today. So you see where the big window is? On the other side of the big window, there's a table, and this is the book, Ministry of Healing. Wonderful, wonderful book. There is a chapter here that I really love called Mind Cure. We maybe talk tomorrow a little bit more. Barbara will maybe talk. We also have it in Spanish. So if you know somebody who speaks Spanish or you speak Spanish, you want it in Spanish, we have it in Spanish. You can take one, don't take to sell, take to read, okay? And we have this magazine, 8 amazing health facts, 8 Bible secrets. These are also in English and Spanish on the same table. You are free to read these as well. Let me check my list, make sure that I go through everything I have to go through. Yes, so tonight at 7 o'clock, if you want to return, we will watch together here. Two other things. Barbara talks about garlic a lot and about honey a lot. We have a friend who has an organic garlic farm and other herbs up by Elgin, Woodstock area. It is called Garlic Escapes. GarlicEscapes.com. You can order garlic and actually can come to your house if you need good quality garlic. And we have a brother in our church here who has bees. And actually today, he brought some honey for one of our other members. He's not here currently because he went to help somebody, take somebody to an eye clinic. But tomorrow, most likely, he'll be here. If you want to get honey, he has these, I think, in Illinois and in Indiana. So that will be available for you as well. And with that, thank you so much for coming. Have a great day. And we'll see you back here tomorrow.